It is a heartwarming story with a great girl power message. It is the racehorse who disappeared. And when we... sorry, most people showing my crotch shot there for... sorry, that's the book. There it is. That's the book, right? The racehorse who disappeared. And when you say that, you immediately think of one horse, and that horse was?
Shergar.
Yes.
And you'll both remember this, but I suspect, Eamonn, you might have worked on the story because he won.
You were going to accuse me of kidnapping.
No, well, you know, there's always that as well. But he won the Derby in 1981, Shergar did, by 10 lengths. And I was 10 at the time, and I remember it so clearly. And Walter Swinburne rode him, who was only 19 at the time. So, you know, there's this child basically riding a wonderful horse who's winning by 10 lengths, and my dad trained the horse who was second. And the jockey on him thought he'd won because Shergar was so far ahead he couldn't see him. And then in February, I think it was February 1983, Shergar was kidnapped.
And they've never found him?
Never found him. And for me, as a child, that was a story that really hit me. I got very worried that Dad's horses would get kidnapped as well. You know, there was a real security fear. But you must have worked on that story. You'd been very young, Buck, obviously.
Very young.
Very young. A 12-year-old in the newsroom,
I think the problem, the difficulty, it wasn't like kidnapping a person.
No.
You know how difficult it is to contain and control a horse. So they kidnapped this horse. The theory is they panicked and then had to put the horse down.
Yes, obviously in the children's book where I get to tell the story, it's not quite as distressing as that.
That's what I'm just thinking.
So, yes, don't worry,
it's
not as distressing as that. But the idea of a racehorse who disappears is based on reality. It happened. And equally, the first book I wrote, which was called The Racehorse Who Wouldn't Gallop, was based on reality. My dad trained a horse called Locksong, who was a very, very fast sprinter, and she just decided as she got a bit older that she didn't really fancy it anymore and wouldn't go on the gallops. So he had to get her to follow his horse, who she fell in love with. It was this big old fat hunter who's a bit hairy and ugly.
With a carrot tied to his tail
or
something.
And she followed him everywhere. So, you know, the stories are based on truth.
Did you see that lovely story of horse therapy?
Well, funnily enough, there's a mention in there of something that happened when Mary Berry was young. She had polio and she spent a long time in hospital. And she had quite an old-fashioned British relationship with her father, you know, sort of, yes, all right, you're over there and I'm here and we love each other, but we'll never say it. And one day her father brought her pony to the hospital. Wasn't allowed in, but she could go to the window and look down. And I mention that in there because there's a sort of a tie-in with that.
I think any connection with pets, you know, so they have these pat dogs, don't they, that go around hospitals and things.
Yes.
Did you love horses?
Would be hopeless at that.
Did you love horses from the get-go?
Oh, yes.
Like, just
because you see, Claire, there's this... Some people will find horses very frightening. Some people have had bad experiences, like my wife has been thrown from a horse.
I was filming stupidly, filming titles for a show. I don't really ride, and they said, "Oh no, we'll just walk the horse by, just have a quick shot of you." I went, "Oh, okay." And as I got on, it's quite a big horse, and as I got on, I just felt, I said, I don't really think I like this. And as I said that, this horse kicked up his heels and off he went.
It would be like getting into a Formula One car if you cannot drive and pressing the accelerator not knowing what it does.
So what is the secret of forming a relationship with an animal, which obviously when it works is so powerful?
I think it's very like a relationship with another person. I think you've got to be patient and you've got to trust them and you've got to be pretty consistent, and I think animals will reflect how you are. So if you're horrid and grumpy and, you know, lose your temper, an animal will bite or kick you because it'll resent that and feel it much quicker than a human would. But if you're kind and consistent and patient, and I think you know what I say
to you. If you behave, I'm like the horse. I'm like the horse.
Is this writer in you now out
unleashed?
There? Have you got unleashed? Are you thinking, oh, there's a crime novel?
I don't know. I had a chat with Hunter Davis the other day. You know, incredibly prolific writer of columns and also books. And he said, well, why haven't... I wrote 2 memoirs, which obviously are for adults, but lots of kids have read them. And he said, why aren't you writing adult fiction? And I said, because it scares me a bit. And anyway, he said, well, you should. Just get on with it.
Do you think there's a novel in there?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Your illustrations are beautiful.
Oh, thank you. That's Tony Ross, who's done all the David Walliams books.
And you bring all the characters to life. There's a nice illustration of all the characters, so you know exactly who you're talking about there. So the big question I've got to ask you is, OK, the horse disappears.
Yeah, don't ask me whether they find it or not, because I'm not giving it away, Eamonn. I'm just saying it's not as traumatic as Shergar. Okay.
Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Right.
Talking of characters, you did Who Do You Think You Are recently?
Oh, I did, yes.
And found out something about your grandfather.
Well, both sides of the family. Yeah. So I did one section here in the UK, and then I had 5 days in America because my dad's American, and his mother was American, and all in New York and New Jersey. And it turns out that my great-great-great-grandfather basically didn't invent baking powder, but he made something called royal baking powder, which loads of people still have cans of, and I've had people sending me photos. He made it become a huge, big thing and made millions. My father keeps asking me, where did all the money go? And I'm not sure. I've got 2. They send you, after you've done the programme, they send you 2 massive folders of all the information that, as well as the stuff they used, the stuff that they didn't use. Oh, so I've got lots of fun still to come. Might end up writing an adult novel on those characters, on real characters.
All of that's very interesting. Your story's very interesting. They called me into the Who Do You Think You Are office, and they interviewed me for 2 days, and they got all this documentation from me. They never, ever got back to me. That was 7 years ago.
I was going to say, Amy, sometimes they do research into people's families, and they just go, no.
Boring.
Boring.
We have from a very boring family. That's it.
Very dull.